So I'm attempting something that I have not done before, and that is make soup while we are on a passage. And the only reason I decided to do this is because there's only 8 knots of wind and we have very, very, very flat seas, so I think I can pull this off. So one of my all-time favorite meals is shrimp bisque when it's made homemade with this recipe that our friend makes, Gary, aka Pedro. He is an amazing boat cook in his grilling and his seafood preparation. So after I had his seafood bisque, I've made it several times and it's my very, very favorite recipe. So first it involves getting shrimp, and when you get your shrimp you want to clean it. Keep all of the shells and the heads, the rest away, and you start by sauteing some onion and some garlic, get it all nice and sauteed, and then you throw in your shrimp shells and you get them all nice and toasty for a few minutes, and then you can deglaze the pan with some sherry, which I did, and after you have that done, then you pour in several cups of water and throw in a carrot. I threw in a stalk of celery and some herbs. I happen to grow some basil and rosemary up in my little planters up on in my cockpit, so I threw some of that in. Boiling for a couple hours now, and when that gets really soft and tendered and sauteed, I'm going to go ahead and use my hand blender, and we're going to blend it up. And that's step 1. So now I'm going to make the actual shrimp bisque. So I light my burner. And I have a gimbaled stove, which means when the boat moves, this should stay flat in theory. We shouldn't have any accidents. So the first thing I'm going to do is let my pan heat up, and then I'm going to add my butter. And I'm using about between 1/4 and 1/2 cup of butter. And we're going to let that melt. So it's never guaranteed that I'm going to have the exact ingredients that I need for a recipe, so I have to improvise quite often. For instance, this recipe calls for heavy cream, and we walked a total of 5 miles looking for a grocery store, and the only one we could find was a Lidl, and Lidl does not carry heavy cream or real milk, so I had to get milk in a box, no heavy cream, but I was told that Greek yogurt, unsweetened Greek yogurt, works really well to add thickness and creaminess, so I'm going to go ahead and try this recipe with Greek yogurt because I had it on hand. So I've got my butter sizzling in my pan, and I'm going to go ahead and add a couple tablespoons of flour and make a roux. Whisk it into the butter until it gets nice and toasty. Okay. Into my roux, I'm going to add a little bit of sea salt and a little bit of garlic powder. Okay, it's just the right thickness, so I'm going to go ahead and start adding my broth and whisk it in. A little at a time. Remind you, I'm only making enough bisque for 2 people, so I'm not using all of my full recipe ingredients. So if I was making this back in the States, I would definitely have some Old Bay on hand, but I ran out of Old Bay about 1.5 years into our voyage, and I have not found anything called Old Bay anywhere in Europe since. But they do have fun little seasonings like this Jamaican jerk seasoning. I'm going to add a little bit of this just because I really like the flavors and I think it will complement it much like Old Bay will. So I'm going to add a couple dashes of Jamaican jerk seasoning. And I'm just waiting for this to heat up and start boiling a little bit until it gets nice and thick. So it's not thickening up quite the way I wanted it to. It is thicker, but I don't think that I'm going to add the milk because I don't really want to thin it down anymore. The flavor is absolutely amazing. I'm very, very, very happy with the flavor. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a couple tablespoons of Greek yogurt, maybe to give it a little bit of creaminess without thinning it down any. See how that works? I love my galley. I'm supported on 3 sides. I can always hang on to something, cook with one hand and hang on, which is really important. Not so much today because C is being very kind to me, but there are some days when I come down here and I have to make something to eat, and it's not pleasant. And this gives me a lot of security knowing that I can cook pretty much in any conditions because I can wedge myself in here and hang on with one hand. Okay, so let's give this one final taste test. Oh yeah. That worked very well. I'm really happy with that. So now if I had used uncooked shrimp, I would put the uncooked shrimp in the bisque and let it cook for about 3 or 4 minutes only. Don't want to overcook the shrimp. But since I used already cooked shrimp, I deveined them and they're all cooked. So I'm just going to put them in here and heat up for a minute. Look, I did the dishes. How easy. Okay, so I think they're probably heated up quite instantly. I'm going to turn off my gas. Transfer this into a bowl or 2. 2 bowls, because there is 2 of us. And make sure that I get shrimp and broth in each bowl. Alrighty, and then last but not least, I am going to put in 1 sprig of cilantro that I have grown from my little boat garden of herbs. So a sprig of cilantro on top, and we're ready to go. Oh, I almost forgot the best part. So I have my cream sherry. And as the coup de grace, I am going to put a splash of cream sherry on the top of each. Very, very good addition to this recipe. Now the real challenge is carrying it up there without spilling it and then seeing if my husband likes it.
It's too hot to taste.
No, it's not. Just try the broth.
Not your best.
What?
It's delicious.
Scumbag. How hard I worked on that.
Ah, so good. Are you going to have some?
I certainly am. Good night, son. I have to go to bed by 8 because my shift starts at midnight, so gotta get dinner done by 7, in bed by 8, and then on my first watch at midnight. As always, thank you for watching, and please help us out by hitting the like and subscribe button.